Sherilyn Rose here. I'm going to try something I almost never do, a completely one-layer card.
Hi everybody, I am putting my spin on a vintage technique that Aram posted about stamping onto colored cardstock and then adding some details to make it appear older than it really is. I am also going to use a brown ink as well to further accent that vintage technique.
Oh, my chicken. That's something I'm going to have to work on talking and crafting at the same time, eh? The stamp we're using for this card was from the Altenew Secret Garden Retreat. It was the One Go Friendship Flowers. You can see I had the stamp there first. Now we're using the stencils, and there's 6 of those stencils. This one is exclusive to the retreat, which was sold out. However, they've got lots of other stamps that you could use this technique with. It was from sort of a challenge set by one of the Altenew educators and main design team, Aram. She had posted, it was almost a pointillism technique where she had added dots onto a card and suggested that we try it out. I wanted to engage the skills of our craft making hobby, one of the honors of which is sharing handmade kindness in times of sorrow with our friends and family out there. I was working out the aspects of a sympathy card in my head for a longtime friend who had just lost her 4-legged family. I know from when I lost my long-term horse, which I'd had for like a quarter of a century, 2 people had sent me cards, and it really did help at that time. I was pulling from the inspiration of the retreat instructors as well as some ideas I had in my own head. I wanted to make like a diffuse card, as if you were looking through a veil, so to speak, which we do when our loved ones pass through to the other side over the Rainbow Bridge. So what you're watching is me trying to figure out how to get that stippling type effect on a card, because I'd never seen one like the idea in my head out there before. I tried with the sponge first, which gave some nice texture, but as the fresh dye inks dried back and smoothed out, they merged. So I then next grabbed out my mini brush and used like a stippling straight from above or from the side to get it to dab, 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 dab across the top, which finally gave me the texture that I was looking for. The spots were far enough apart that you could tell it wasn't like a smooth blend. It had the little dots if you looked close enough at it. So I've gone through each of the layers. I've done that with the colors that I'm using, getting darker for each successive layer. You can do these stencils in any order you want. Most of us like to work on the flowers first, which were the first ones you saw. The leaves start coming in on layer 4 and layer 5, which are the ones that we're up to now. I wanted to have a muted enough green that it would go with the softer colors of the flowers and the color of the cardstock, which was a buttery light yellow. This layer, I brought back in layer 1 because I'm just going around the edges of the larger flowers, stippling again from the side to darken them up. Next, I've got some rice paper out here. I've dabbed some ink on it. I'm turning it upside down. I'm going to put a piece of paper over and I'm going to rub it into that background cardstock to get a crosshatch effect on it. Over the exposed portion of stencil number 6, the background area, I am spritzing some antique linen distress spritz spray over top of it. It's just a mist. It was from a little bit higher up, so it speckles it. The stenciling took me about 45 minutes to finish. I think it was because I was trying out different ways to convey what was going on in my head onto the paper. Normal ink blending would only take you about half an hour, and then you'd end up with 2 cards out of it. I'm jumping here to one of the techniques that Erin was talking about, bringing in dots over top of stamps or stencils that you've done. I'm using some artist markers first, and then I jump to my alcohol markers with the colors set for each tone. You do small dots, big dots. It's very similar to Pointallism, where, like Thoreau, where he put little dabs of color next to each other, and when you stood back, you got a better effect of what the whole painting was about. Well, I've applied that to this card, combining those ideas from Thoreau and the Pointillists from, when was that, the 1800s? I'm going to have to bone up on my art history again. You wouldn't think that I'd gone to university for it. My goodness, you don't use it, you lose it. Anyway, I did a combination of the two techniques, and then I brought the entire panel back into my splat box. I am from very high up spraying some distress oxide spray over top of the rusty hinge, and that's going to put a mist across everything. Now that that's dry, I am putting the sentiment on the front. This is my first time using the obsidian black ink. I'm very impressed with it. It is actually as sharp as they say, especially since I was stamping over top of all those speckles and the shimmer splatters and the oxide spray speckles. I put black, fine black powder over it first, embossed that. I'm coming back in with a second layer on the hugs with the obsidian ink as well to deepen it up a little bit. I'm putting it over top, and because it's a pigment ink, I'm now going to bring in there was the clear matte dull powder. Most people don't use this, but it's a really neat one to use. It will give you a velvety texture across the top. I thought it would go an awful lot better with what we've got happening on the panel with that softness. You don't want something super in your face because this is a sympathy card. It's also the reason why I am trying to be very serious while I am talking about this rather than being my usual bubbly self. Sorry, my hon, that this is going to if you watch this video later. Oh, my chicken. Okay, where were we? Oh, yes, the sub-sentiment. Again, I'm stamping it with the obsidian black ink just over the top. This one I'm not going to do anything with. I am just going to let it dry. While that's drying, you know how with old photographs that are either sepia toned or they've gotten so pixelated, so grainy just from fading out? Well, I'm doing the same thing by bringing in some brown ink around the edges of this panel. It's one of those universally accepted card making techniques, don't you think? To make things look a little bit more vintage, putting that edging all around the outside. It does actually frame your card though. I like doing it. I do it on quite a few of mine. I know I promised that this was going to be a one-layer card. It is. I am putting texture on it by bringing in the burlap press plate. I'm putting it down through my Spellbinder system. I'm putting the squishy mat over top of it. I'm putting the adapter plate on top of that. I'll run it through. It's going to impress into it that burlap texture. I'm pleased with how it's looking so far, so I'm going to flip it over. I'm grabbing out some ultra sticky tape. This is the 1 inch. I like it because I get to do less work. Although here, I made myself work because I didn't cut off about 1/8 of an inch from the end. Easily rectified, and it'll do a good job of holding down that bumpy cardstock. Inside sentiments, grabbed out one of my very old, close to my heart, purific stamps. I'm using my blender brush to accentuate the I'm so sorry part with just a slightly darker shade of blue, very lightly pressing down on it so that you don't squash the sayings on, like, especially the very delicate, very fine words within those. The second sentiment is from the beautiful inside stamps from altenew, doing that in a complementary color, the blue and the orange, which we've got on the front of the card as well. And there's one little paw print there for this little feller that just passed. All right, we're getting ready to put this down. I'm going to put dabs of glue in each of the corners. It's me. I have a thing about corner sticking up from cards. The rest of the panel is going to be held on really well by that sticky ultra tape. I'm holding it against my mat to get the bottom aligned, and if your panel's the same size, you should just be able to get the 2 bottom corners set, and then boop, just pops right on, just like that. The nice thing about the ultra sticky tape too is you don't actually have to weight the panel after you've got it stuck down like you do with glue, which can curl, as I know very well. On the back, custom stamp. This one again is another with love from Geraldine because she deserves it. I know what she's going through. I also know that many of you can relate to the next part, which is I got a color smudge on the inside of the card, but I fixed it by die cutting out the inside part with the sentiments on it. A triad of enamel dots framing the words on the front are going to finish that card off. There we are. All right, you guys know what's coming. You all be that change you want to see in the world. Think of somebody that could just use a little boost. Send them a homemade card. Be nice to each other. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. We'll catch you all next time. All right, bye-bye.